Hey, Angie Rae here with Girl That's Toxic. Okay, it's time to talk about the United States Supreme Court again. Probably a focus on Clarence Thomas again, but we'll talk about other things. The way I want to talk about affirmative action and some of the things I want to bring out. The duplicity of black folks like Clarence Thomas and Candace Owens who took advantage of affirmative action when it was there for them, but then decided to turn the corner, I guess, and become rabid proponents of white supremacy culture. They have nothing good to say about anybody who looks like them, leading me to believe they hate who they are. They hate the fact that they are black. They hate the fact that affirmative action was used to get them into college, get them a first job, get them a second job, whatever. But we're going to dig into a few things because this country wants to treat in particular black folks, those of us who are part of the transatlantic slave trade, okay? They want to treat us like we don't matter. They want us to go away, but we're not going to go away. And hey, I'm 32% European. How in the hell did that happen? It happened because you were raping black slaves, okay? And here is where we are. So we didn't all start the race the same place, the same time. No, we didn't. And because this country chose to weaponize race, here we are, as Prince would say, in our Paisley Palace. But let's get back to my friend, Clarence Thomas. My friend, I'm being very facetious. I hope you know that. Clarence Thomas, let me go over here. Okay. So this is Clarence Thomas back in the 80s. So back in 1983, he was chairman of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And this is what he said in 1983. God only knows where I would be today if not for the legal principles of equal employment opportunity measures such as affirmative action that are critical to minorities and women in this society. These laws and their proper application are all that stand between the first 17 years of my life and the second 17 years. So Clarence Thomas was not the rabid anti-affirmative action fella back in 1983 when he worked at the EEOC. And you may recall that's when he had access to Anita Hill because she worked for him. And that's when her testimony during his confirmation hearing became very important. So folks like Clarence Thomas and Candace Owens sued a school for some racial issues, got some money, had the NAACP help her out. And now, again, very anti-black, which is the color of your skin and the color of Clarence Thomas's skin. But Clarence Thomas, in 2013, listen to what he says. He compared affirmative action to Jim Crow, to the Jim Crow era laws, saying that educational benefits were used as justification for both Jim Crow and affirmative action. Get out of here. You are likening affirmative action to the Jim Crow era laws. Do you know what those laws were, Clarence? I don't consider him a justice. I'm sorry. That whole Supreme Court, the Roberts Supreme Court, is suspect. He goes on and on and on to insult us. If you're black, you know what I'm talking about. He goes on and on to insult us. Every opportunity he got to talk about affirmative action, whether it was in schools or whether it involved businesses, he was there for the fight. And this is something that I've talked about for as long as I can remember. And now it's a big thing. And it's this whole legacy crap. See, Donald Trump's brother, Fred, called University of Pennsylvania to say, hey, My younger brother wants to get in. That's how he got in. I had to apply to places. You had to apply to places. But this kind of legacy crap, that's what we need to take a look at. I was doing a job in Washington, D.C. for a firm that was kind of liberal. The client, however, was not. I got called back to do some additional work, and the client and I had a chance to talk. And I said to him, I started talking about affirmative action. I don't know why, because that's the way I roll. And I said, you know what affirmative action is? When your son gets to get a job at your law firm or your buddy's law firm because of who he knew. So that's affirmative action. So a spot, or is that a quota? A spot was left there open for him or created for your child. And this guy said to me, you know, Angela, I never thought about it like that. Well, giving you something to think about, buddy. Oh, yeah. Affirmative action has been happening for white folks. And that stuff that happened some years ago with those movie stars out in Hollywood where they were paying to get their kids into USC. I know people who went to USC who legitimately got into USC. Their parents had faith and confidence that they could get in. These parents who went to jail, many of them for what they did, they didn't have any confidence in their children. They didn't have any confidence in their children's educational abilities. And so they lied, they cheated, they did whatever. We knew there's something is up with some of these folks who are in school with us, majority population. How in the hell did you get in this school? You aren't bright. You aren't sharp. You aren't showing me the potential that you might have for the future. Well, just a lot to say. A lot to say today. This lady right here. This lady. Woo-wee. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Let me tell you what she said in her dissent in the case, the Supreme Court case, Students for Fair Admission versus University of North Carolina and Students for Fair Admission versus President and Fellows of Harvard College. Of course, we know the majority said bye a Felicia to affirmative action, and this is her dissent. She said, she described Thomas's words as part of his prolonged attack on affirmative action with, this is her now, quoting, with let them eat cake obliviousness today, the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat. By deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. Amen. Sister Brown Jackson. Amen. And that whole colorblindness stuff, let me tell you something. White folks at some point came up with this whole, let's be colorblind. I don't see color. I want you to see my color. I want you to see my beautiful skin tone. What do you mean colorblind? Let me tell you about this country. This country made black people the bottom of the barrel, and they needed to do everything they could to promote purity and white supremacy. So when other folks, like let's say Chinese folks back in 1923, Chinese man, Mississippi, married, 3 kids, sent his daughter to the white school. It was fine for year 1. Year 2, the young lady tries to go to school, and the board has said, no. You're not white. Now, Mississippi hadn't given a definition to what being colored meant, but they said you're more colored than white, weaponizing. See, race was always weaponized in this country. If you are black, you are at the bottom of the barrel. You don't deserve anything. You shouldn't even be here. We hate you. We hate you. We'll lynch you. All kinds of horrible things. So nobody wanted to be associated with being black. Everybody who was other wanted to be considered white. But the Supreme Court, lots of decisions saying, no. Sorry, you're going to be black. You're going to be considered. It's like you have Negro blood in you, even though you don't. But you may not have Negro blood, but you don't have white blood. So this country weaponized race so that we have to have things like affirmative action. So many other things, redlining, there's so much. And folks want to act like racism is over. My good googly goo. This country is on the brink of, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Jim Crow era laws. Folks want that. This is crazy what's happening. And let me just tell you this. The largest recipients of affirmative action are white women. I'm going to do it one more time for you. The largest recipients of affirmative action are white women. They inured the benefit of affirmative action specifically when it came to employment and when it comes to employment. And you can take that to the bank. Look it up yourself. Not blacks, not Hispanics, not indigenous, not Asian, white women, the largest recipients of affirmative action. I live in a state that is very white and supposedly liberal. And I have issues sometimes with the way they do things. So I just needed to come on here and have a little bit of a conversation with you about affirmative action and to let you know that affirmative action exists within the white community through the whole legacy process and through the process of when you go to get an employment, when you go to get a job, you might, if you're white, be able to slide on in there even though you don't have the appropriate credentials because you are white and because your mommy or your daddy knew somebody. How is that not affirmative action? How is that not a quota? If you can address that to me, I would love to hear it. And thank you for being such a bright light, sis. We appreciate you.